I'm Kurt. Hey guys. Hey guys. What's up, guys? We're gonna inject this right on the label.
Does this water have like a taste to it?
Airtight. Well, watertight.
If you're not documenting yourself, you just don't exist.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Hey everyone, welcome to Garbage In, Garbage Out. I'm your host, Kelton. I don't have Grift with me this week. He's off running a deep covert mission somewhere in the Balkans for his Grift shop. But joining me this week is guest slash, I guess, weekly co-host, unofficial, doing the spot appearance here, Rivers Langley from the Goods from the Woods podcast. How are you, sir?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been just a lovely time the past few days. Been able to unplug a little bit, and then watching this movie felt like it was almost like a real social media palate cleanse, because it didn't make me want to jump right back on to trying and getting famous online.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess, the movie that we're going to be talking about today, people can always tell anyways when they're looking at what the title of the episode is, but it's Spree. Did you know anything about this movie beforehand?
No, I actually had never heard of it until you asked me to watch it, and I'm so happy you did. I kind of dug it, actually.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, it's one of those things that where when I was looking at some of the reviews on it, it seems to be very polarizing. It seems like a lot of people really enjoy this movie. A lot of people really don't. More people don't. And so it kind of hits in that sweet spot of 40 to 60%.
My initial thought was I can totally understand why people maybe didn't like it, because I thought some parts of it maybe came off as like a little bit heavy-handed in terms of how they deal with like kind of the, online psychosis that is Generation Z. But but at the same time, I actually dug it just as a movie, this is one of those classic, I talk about this, we do on our Patreon, where we watch terrible movies all the time, and a lot of movies that are bad, I will go in with the caveat of but at least it was going for something.
Yeah.
That's the spunky effect, where it's like, okay, all right, y'all were really, swinging for the fences, and it's not necessarily a home run, but I really appreciate that kind of thing.
Sure. That's pretty much my attitude to like all the big monster movies.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
It's just
especially
like,
now.
I don't give a shit about the storyline, but like, goddamn, okay, y'all really put a Mothra in there. You spent $30 million on a Mothra.
Oh man, when Mothra appeared in King of the Monsters, I was losing my mind. I couldn't, because I truthfully don't know like the kaiju like backstory of any of these. I just know, there's a big monster and it kicks over buildings, and so I didn't know that like that Mothra is like kind of Godzilla's boo a little bit, and that it's
queen of the monsters.
Yeah, I didn't even know Mothra was gendered in any way. I was just like, oh my god. So it's like it was something else. It was really something else.
Is it really a Hollywood movie if they aren't gendering the giant monsters? Come on now, Rivers.
Yeah.
We gotta think about this,
right?
But anyways, to I guess talk about the actual movie that we saw, not the sci-fi spectacle. This is like a micro budget kind of movie. This is something where it seemed like there were 6 GoPros and basically like 2 effects scenes, and that was it. So.
Yeah. I like I said, man, I appreciated it. I was like, it speaks to the level of planning involved. It's that thing of like, I've never shot a movie, but I've shot a bunch of sketches with my old sketch group Hush Money, and then hopefully we've got more that we're planning to shoot this summer, just on our own. But every time it is a kind of thing where it's like, okay, we have no money to do this. What can we use to make this an effective piece? And I really, really do appreciate the effort that went into like, okay, well, what do people actually use on the internet if this was supposed to be a real scenario? And it's like, well, iPhones and GoPros, so let's not add any unnecessary stuff to this. Let's make it the way it would actually look.
Yeah, and I guess for the people who are wondering what Spree is about, a good kind of synopsis point would be that it's about a young guy named Kurt who's obsessed with being a social media star and going viral, and he hasn't quite made it yet, but he's come up with a plan of how he's actually going to make it to the top, and we get to kind of see that in action. So that to give people an idea. I don't want to dive into spoilers too much until a little bit later on. But looking into some of the people who actually made this movie, the director did a movie called Wobble Place that actually starred Dasha from the Red Scare podcast. I don't know if you've had the misfortune of listening to them or not, but it was fascinating to see that the director came from that side of things.
Yeah, I'm aware of Red Scare. I've never actually listened to them though.
Okay, pleading the fifth. I understand. It's okay. And then some of the producers behind this, they did American Hustle, Detroit, the third VHS film, and then also that Hulu Into the Dark series. So there was some real kind of firepower on the production side. So I guess they might have secured funding for it or what, because otherwise it seemed like it was entirely a one-man operation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think of those, I've only seen American Hustle, but I liked that movie. It was good.
I mean, like a 1 for 4 success rate, I think, on the projects that they've been in.
Yeah,
so.
I've seen VHS 2, I think. Not 3, though.
You have to complete the trilogy. It really ties everything together.
Yeah. I mean, like all those kind of compilation movies like that, VHS was like, okay, 2 of those vignettes were really good, and the other ones are kind of forgettable. So.
Also in this movie is as Kurt, as our main star, is Joe Keery from Stranger Things.
Yes.
I would assume probably one of like the top 3 breakouts from that show. So
yeah, Steve from Stranger Things who I didn't recognize because he's kind of got his hair down. In Stranger Things, he's got the big 80s hair.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
he was the douchebag that became Heart of Gold or whatever.
Yeah. And I told you this, and it's true, and I'll shout him out. My friend at Fakey McFaker on Twitter, comedian Blake Hamilton, who's my buddy from Alabama, who's now based out of LA, looks too much like this guy to the point where it was distracting the hell out of me because it just looked like my buddy Blake. I was like, okay, this is...
that photo that you sent, it did seem like there was going to be a lot of uncanny valleys taking place the entire time with this movie.
Yeah, Blake has a little bit more of a Jake Gyllenhaal look, but just slightly more. Like it was, for me personally, it was just that was a little distracting. And then I realized he was Steve, and I was able to kind of adjust a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that guy. I still have yet to watch season 3 or whatever the most recent season of Stranger Things is. I kept telling myself I was going to do it during the pandemic, and I just haven't. And it's only
they dropped the season 4 trailer.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I need to catch up and the reason I'm doing it is specifically because I like that show a lot, and I know that I will be like, okay, I'm going to watch one episode and then go to bed, and then I'll sit there until 6 a.m. watching the whole thing in one sitting. So that's why I haven't done it. But one of these days, I'm going to catch up. But yeah, I like him on that show, and like I said, in this movie, I don't know, maybe you'll agree with this or maybe not. I felt like, to a person who's like of this generation watching this film, it probably feels a lot like people of my generation, how we felt watching Juno a little bit, where you're just like, you don't get it, man. You don't this is not how we talk, you asshole. That kind of thing. So I can understand maybe people from that generation not liking it for that reason, but my reasons for liking it is not verisimilitude. It's really just the whole concept and execution more than however lifelike it's supposed to be or whatever to that generation.
Well, I mean, I think it has this bizarre appeal where, like, if you are trying to make it big, either in LA or somewhere else, or if you do rely a lot on the online world to establish your presence and build your brand and all that sort of stuff.
What's that like? I wonder what that's like.
Yeah, crazy. Especially, like, also, if you're then having to do various gig work, be it stand-up comedy or ride sharing or whatever.
I can only imagine.
something really just out there,
Yeah.
not incredibly relatable for whatever reason, except
Yes.
maybe for one particular group. But I appreciated how the entire movie, it seemed, and one of the comparisons that gets often taken with this movie is with American Psycho.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it really has that much in terms of plot, but rather in sense of each of the characters in the movie is like a caricature of what that character might be in another movie, or in something that's a little less hyper realistic.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Although unlike American Psycho, it's pretty unambiguous about whether or not this thing is actually happening. That's the thing. You get
that is a very different, unfortunate type thing. I would like that the multicam version of American Psycho where it's him just kind of tripping out in his office. So.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, the other thing that I kind of admired is I was like, I feel like everybody on Earth has had the "let's make Taxi Driver" but for Uber for years, and that somebody kind of did it rules. And like I said, results may vary however you take this, but again, hats off for fucking doing the goddamn thing, because I had that fucking idea. A guy driving an Uber.
That when it came out, as one of the Sundance selections in the next category, which is where the movie like Unfriended or Searching came from, where it's all kind of told via screen life as a storyline. It seems like that really was just probably 100 people in that audience who were thinking like, fucking Christ, that's how you make that movie. Got it. Okay. It's okay though. Like we'll just jump on the next app, whatever it becomes, and then we'll come up with a horror movie immediately about that. So hold on to the scripts.
I wanted to just first of all shout out whoever's job it was to write the comments that were coming in while all the stuff was happening, because I was watching that and now I only watched the movie once, but now I want to go back and watch it again, specifically just to read the reactions that everyone is having to the titular spree, because every time I would look over there and catch it, there would always be some really funny, like almost like Onion headline worthy type shit going on in the comments. You're just like, man, whoever did this is like a whole job that when the moving pictures started, the Lumiere brothers could never have imagined someone's job would be to have running commentary at the bottom of the screen on whatever was happening.
They didn't have the vision for it.
No.
If only,
that would be funny though. It's the train coming into the station, or the rocket landing on the moon, and someone's just like, "Wow, bro, that sucks."
The Uber's coming right for me. Oh my god. Well, I guess kind of that leads into the ultimate question, which is, would you recommend this movie to other people?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've already pestered plenty of people, you included, now to actually go ahead and watch this, because I mean, it kind of plays out a little bit like a Mad Libs Nightcrawler, almost, and I like that a lot.
That was my favorite movie of 2014. Like, and the fact that it wasn't even fucking nominated for Best Picture drove me crazy. That movie is 100,000 times better than fucking Birdman, and it's not even close. But no, I'm very interested, and I'll keep you updated on this. I want to try to get my friend Monica Scott. Everybody should follow her at Mighty Monica on Twitter. She is a social media manager, like by profession, like that's her gig, and so I am always interested to get her perspective on types of stuff like this, because she's one of the people I know who's not just like a comedy jackass who's like that's their thing, to tell me like, okay, is this do you think this is a good representation or whatever. But anyway, I want to hear her perspective. So shout out to Monica. She's the author of my probably the most useful tweet in history, which is "Fight the urge to weigh in." Which I think about that every time I'm about to say something online. I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna let this play out.
Oh, well, as someone who's addicted to the discourse, I'm going to need to really urge you, make that a shirt or something.
I know.
Just, it could even work, at least for the fat people like myself. It could be a picture of a scale, too.
Yeah, there we
fighting
go.
the urge to weigh in.
Yeah,
Either way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the few things I wanted to mention kind of up top about this movie are the performances as well. Something that really blew me away was, I mean, because, yeah, it was Steve from Stranger Things, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But, like, David Arquette is in this movie as Kurt's dad.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you specifically, because what's going on with David Arquette's career right now?
Well, so have you seen his documentary?
I have not.
Oh,
I
buddy.
listened to your podcast where you were talking a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, so in addition to Spree, that is also on Hulu. It's called You Can't Kill David Arquette, and it's about his comeback to wrestling, and just kind of about his crazy life. And from what I understand from the documentary, basically, one of the things they show that's just truly fucking horrifying is that he kind of deals with like a debilitating bipolar sort of thing, and when he's having like an extreme kind of depression, I guess he basically has to go to the doctor about once a month and be injected with ketamine to kind of level out his brain and stuff like that. And there's a scene in that movie where they're literally holding him down and shooting him up with ketamine, and he is just kind of like, it's all right, and he, like, you could just hear him just like kind of going
the
from
elephant trank is doing its work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's that scene in Old School where Will Ferrell gets hit with the tranquilizer is funny as hell in a movie, and then you see it in real life, you're like, oh man, this is fucking bad. But
now I see why people were disturbed by it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, he came back to wrestling. David Arquette famously as a promotional stunt for the awful 2000 movie Ready to Rumble. Won the WCW championship, the championship that was held by Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and all of the legends of the biz, Sting, Hulk Hogan, and all of a sudden
I'm sure that wasn't controversial at all, by the way, in the wrestling world, right?
Well, so it's funny how wrestling fans are, because at the time people were so fucking mad about it, and truthfully, like, rightfully so, but also like take it down a notch. It's fine. This is also the same company that had they electrocuted Abdullah the Butcher in an electric chair at one point. It's fine. It's real goofy. It's fine. But people spent 20 years being mad about that, and in wrestling, man, that's money on the table. That is just heat that is just sitting there. So as soon as that guy kind of makes his way back, people are immediately going to be like, fuck you. So that's a draw for money. So he started kind of coming back to the indie wrestling scene. There's a particularly horrifying incident that they're actually going to cover on the Vice series Dark Side of the Ring that coming up later this month, I think, about his match with Nick Gage at the Hi-Fi in Los Angeles. It's like a little bar and venue space where they have wrestling events and stuff like that. And he fought Nick Gage in a hardcore match, and a light tube got basically almost cut his jugular.
Jesus Christ.
It is like one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen on camera.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, to then also know, like, oh, this was like, a quarter inch away from becoming a snuff film.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing that would horrify me the most.
Yeah. So as best I know, I mean, obviously nobody's working during the panini, as my friend Caroline calls it. So he's off for the panini, but pre-panini and hopefully post-panini, he'll be still wrestling, and he's got himself in like incredibly good shape, as you can see in this movie. Like, he's very svelte, and like he's kind of in it to win it at the moment.
It is weird to see, because like you're seeing him. It reminds me a little bit of like whenever an actor is in a comedy but then like gets all roided up for a Marvel movie or something.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden they starts wearing just baggier clothes on the TV show. Like,
yes.
They gotta hide the fact that they've added 40 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, well, he's Chris Pratt, except he's not he seems to be, at least in his documentary, like a good dude. You're like, okay, man, like I am rooting for this guy, because he truthfully is a guy that did kind of, I mean, his whole point in the documentary documentary especially is he's like, I was kind of on my way as to be just an established, actor that was taken seriously. And then I had the weird detour where I was kind of the comedy relief in Scream. And then all of a sudden I became a comedy guy. And then it was like hard to get work once you kind of get that label slapped on you of like, oh, you're like the useless idiot funny guy. And that's all. Yep. And so that he was like, so essentially that's all I was ever going to be. And so I just kind of leaned into it, but it sort of fucked me in the long run. So he's, he's a guy, again, much like this movie, he's a dude I'm rooting for. I'm like, yeah, man, fucking, this is great.
You want to feel, you want to see a success story. And that's definitely what happens at the end of this movie. Feel good hit of the summer is what this movie was.
Yeah.
Real quick before we dive into the rundown, of course, I want to issue our standard spoiler warning for things as we deliver the blow by blow. If Grift were here, he would be also plugging whatever's going on at grift.shop, so go ahead and check that out as well. I don't know, just he got into the Pog discourse, so go buy a Pog hat and it'll be fine. It's a great time all the way around.
Are we talking the cardboard circles, the Pogs?
No, people were upset that the porn subcategory could be a racial slur. So, it relates to race baiting, or I don't know. I've stayed offline because of the Spree movie. In part, I've started to realize I'm not going to get mad at strangers, and I'm not going to take bait of what seems like trolls. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I Googled it just because I didn't know what that was. Now I get it. Okay.
I'm sorry that for you having to check that out.
I was getting excited. I was like, dude, I think I still got a slammer somewhere. I'll fucking throw down on some pogs with y'all. Like, I got nothing but
if
time.
Only the discourse was about that. That would have been so much better. And probably also more wholesome overall.
Yeah, I got nothing but time.
Without further ado, I guess we can go ahead and dive right into things. So Spree opens up on a montage of sorts from Kurt's World 96. It's Kurt Kunkel. Hell of a name there for our protagonist, who is a guy who wants to be a social media star and go viral. And at first you kind of think that his channel is a success, and that was a little bit of a fun fake out because he's doing all of the trend hopping kind of from idea to idea, sneaker reviews to vapes to drawing success at XYZ channel subscribers. It was cute. What did you think about that?
Like I said, I thought it was. I enjoyed that part. Again, my focus was on the execution more so than how it was actually playing out, because I did keep. I mean, Juno's the only thing I kept thinking of, where I'm just like, okay, all right, let's get to the thing, please. I can see that whoever wrote this is my age, and does not quite get this, I think.
Yeah, just reacts only in GIFs now. It's kind of like the impression I get instead of the skull emoji, like all Gen Zers are actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I like I said, I mean, I'm not taking points off of the movie for the first 10 minutes for the setup. It's like, just let's get to the thing.
I mean, they got so much information done out of the way. Like, we also learned that the kid that Kurt used to babysit, named Bobby, is a legit internet celebrity who kind of does the clout chasing YouTube, or clout charity, if you will.
Yeah,
the homeless hero video.
Yeah, that kid was hilarious. I enjoyed that a lot, actually.
Apparently he's a real YouTuber.
I could tell. I could truly tell.
It was kind of one of those things of so you're probably doing your best bits, but further heightened for the sake of this movie.
Yes,
I enjoy it. So.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to see the dichotomy that Kurt has babysitted a kid, watched him blow up, and been kind of reduced to the sidekick / victim, I think, of a lot of Bobby's early work. So,
well,
and in the other movie, he would just be accepted as being like a leech and trying to get the runoff from Bobby, but Bobby's like, I don't know how old, like 16, maybe?
Yeah, it seems like that. Yeah, as a person who's seen many comedians younger than me get huge, nothing to relate to there at all.
But you weren't babysitting them.
No,
at least,
no,
you
that's
know?
true. That's true. But it is weird when a guy you saw at the open mic like a year ago just turns up on like SNL or something. You're like, wait, what? Huh?
Huh? Yeah. And, SNL has no connection with this movie whatsoever either.
No.
So I'm sure the wires get further crossed with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, for the sake of trying to make money and further grow his channel, Kurt has found work doing this rideshare app called Spree, because Uber, of course, would not let them have the rights to this movie, I'm sure. And then also Spree works as kind of a hint at what's about to happen.
Right.
And he sets up cameras all over his car so then he can kind of live stream episodes and put them on YouTube or wherever, which it's interesting. But I also think that if I'm just getting the raw video feed from like 9 different cameras that get uploaded onto a YouTube page, that seems like a fresh circle of hell.
Yeah. I could not think. I mean, when I was watching it, my main thought was just like, I would be so fucking mad if I got in that Uber. Like, I would definitely get murdered because I fucking hate it. I was like, no, under no circumstances is this happening.
Yeah, Kurt comes across this idea called The Lesson that he's going to show people, and it's going to be him instructing his viewers about how to become famous on social media. Kurt has been trying to become famous for like 10 years on social media, and his views and videos rarely get more than 10 total views or 10 total viewers. And I really wanted to pick your brain on like, what do you like, is there anyone like that in the world of comedy? Like, because I know there are like some people who aren't as funny as they think they are, but they're still trying. But like that level of lack of success for a decade seems a lot.
Yeah, well, so I mean, there's 2 answers to that. One is that I think that just like there's definitely a lot of kind of YouTubers that have tried their hand at stand-up. Especially a couple years ago, it was a big thing where comedy clubs that have been sort of a failing business model for decades at this point, who are just trying to get butts in the seats, started booking YouTubers to do comedy shows. And now
that went super well, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, so it's funny because now I think a lot of these people have professional management teams who kind of understand how to book a show like that, because it doesn't have to suck. There is a way to book that type of show, and the way to do it is the way that a lot of comedic actors and people who are not stand-ups necessarily but are at least funny people book shows like that, which is they make it a 2-hander. So they basically bring an interviewer on stage who they're friends with, who's kind of funny. It's the way wrestlers tour stand-up clubs now. So if you see, Mick Foley, or I guess he actually does kind of do solo stand-up work. But if you see like Jake the Snake or, someone like that, he'll have a guy that he likes on stage who basically is moderating like a question and answer kind of thing. And I believe that is how most of those YouTubers do it now. If they're actually doing live stuff, they will have a moderator on stage, someone who's like associated with their channel, what have you, to kind of like field, and do a question and answer thing rather than a straight live performance, which is around 2014, 2015. No one was that savvy. And so they were just straight up putting these like 14, 15-year-olds up on a stage at a comedy club. And granted, like, some percentage of the audience would be their fan base, but a lot of times you'd have a 50-50 split. And so there are many, many very funny, shaky videos that they would love to disappear from the internet of different YouTubers getting booed out of the fucking building at comedy clubs across the country. So that does happen. But I will say most of the people in comedy who are kind of, clout chasers or what have you, I think there is something about being humbled on stage by a real crowd as opposed to, just being online that makes you a little bit more conscious of how you come off.
Sure.
So those people exist, and most of them are not as slick as they think they are, but they at least attempt to be slick. It's not, just like, yo, I'm at whatever Logan Paul's house, fucking hit me the likes. Like that's rare. It's more just like, I think people have gotten very smart about this type of thing. So it's not as direct and like pathetic as this character necessarily, which is where, like I said, I could totally see someone of a younger generation watching this and just being like, man, it's not like that at all, which it's like, yeah, it is. They're just, for the sake of getting to the point, they're just making him more pathetic than a real guy like this would be.
Exactly.
But
everything's heightened. So, like you're supposed to be able to pick up on his obvious clues, which might not be so obvious in the real world. Like it's the same idea.
But I would sympathize with anybody making a old man yelling at cloud kind of critique of this film, because it's like, I'm gonna fucking say Juno 9,000 times, but it was the way it made me feel when she started running her fucking mouth, and I was just like, no, shut up. We're not like, no one is like this.
Yeah,
So.
Quit espousing weird references to cultural events that you were a fetus for, please. Yeah, but
right.
That's what we want. It just felt weird because throughout the course of the movie, Kurt is doing all of the things that people who are successful because they've been grinding it out so long do, like putting his logo stickers over gas pumps. And, it just reminds me of like that element of a hustle. At least in Houston, there's an okay, like punk music scene out here. And so like, it just kind of brought back a wave of flashbacks of when people would be just kind of posterizing anything and everything they could to try and drive people to go check them out.
Right.
And so
right.
To know that he did all of that would mean that either it's kind of a joke about how it doesn't work and it doesn't drive people, or B, like it did drive people to check out his channel, but he's just that bad that he still has only like the 10 people following him.
Yeah, I've definitely put some stickers up in my day and in select cool areas of town if I'm performing there, And I do have at least one iTunes review for my podcast that's like, I saw this on the power box near a Subway. It's a pretty good show. 5 stars. I'm like, all right, hey, there's one.
It's just nose to the grindstone, a real kind of workhorse style ethic. And so it's something that's admirable.
Yeah, if I'm doing a show, I bring stickers to the show, and anybody that comes up and says, hey, good show, I always go, hey, thanks for hanging out. Check out the podcast. And then if I got 5 or 6 left over, I'm going to go walk around the bars and put them up. Who cares?
Adorning any and all bathroom stalls and meeting cork boards. Anything else that you can.
Yeah,
of course.
yeah. We used to promote our radio show the same way when I was in college. We'd make flyers and put those up all over any laundry mats or mailboxes outside apartments. I'm pretty shameless about self promotion. I really am.
Well, hey, if only Kurt could have taken a lesson from you. I don't think if he was just like, the lesson was about how to put up stickers everywhere on only that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my whole thing is like, I like I said, I'm kind of shameless about self-promotion, but I'm more concentrated on actually putting out something that people would enjoy, like that should always be the main concern versus
absolutely not. No, come on. That it really is revealing your age. Come on now.
Yeah. So I like the hustle. I do. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but once people actually go to the thing you're promoting, there can't just be more promotion there,
Yeah. It's just a series of YouTube videos about him like throwing it to other social media like as a wormhole plug. Your YouTube promotes your Instagram, which promotes your TikTok, which promotes your SoundCloud, which promotes just this awful knot that could go on and on and on. So we quickly arrive at the first kill that takes place in this movie. It's where Kurt brings in this guy who is at first you kind of think that he's a jerk, and then you very quickly realize that he is a white nationalist.
Yes.
And he takes a sip from a water bottle that Kurt gives him, and it turns out that the water bottles are all poison that Kurt is walking around with.
Yeah,
so he chokes to death. It happens so fast.
Yeah, I gotta say it was kind of funny just living in LA, and the fact that he was giving a white supremacist rally speech in Highland Park, which is almost exclusively Latinos and white liberal hipsters. Like, I was like, what is the market in Highland Park for this?
The scene has changed, I think, a lot. That's all that we can think of in this universe.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it made me sad. I'm like, man, they ran out the gangs. The gang that was in Highland Park was called the Avenues, and they ran them out in the mid 2000s. It's like, man, if we're gonna have a white supremacist rally, let's at least invite the Avenues to come show up and see what they got to say about it. Hombre.
It's a rainbow coalition of hate, I think, is what we should be trying to inspire.
Yeah.
It cracked me up because it seemed like that character, just talk about a way to win over the audience to be on the protagonist's side. Like, it's whatever the opposite version of the save the cat moment is.
Yes.
In the sense of, like, he does a bad thing, but then it kind of endears us because, like, oh, he killed the white nationalist guy. He poisoned him.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I was, truthfully, I was a little worried that that's where the plot was going. That, like, all of the people he was going to try to kill were all, like, deserved it in some way. And then he just, like, kills that real estate lady. And it's like, okay, well, like, she's gentrifying the neighborhood, but come on.
Yeah, well, maybe see, we can pick up the hidden social messages
that
take place perhaps in this, because the actress is Siggy from Vikings, and so, like, when she gets into his car, she drinks the poison water, and I wasn't so much concerned about, is it going to be people who deserve it. I was concerned. I was like, you can only poison so many people with water bottles before I start to lose interest here. So
I have a very serious question for you. Have you ever taken anything out of an Uber that was offered to you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No,
that was,
dear God.
That was the thing, because it's always funny when you get in those Ubers that are like that, where they've got, lights, and they got video screens, and then they got free candy and water bottles and Kleenex and all that shit, and you're just like, man, this is not what this is for. Like, I'm really just trying to get to, to pick up my car from the dealer, from the service spot at the dealership. Like,
exactly.
I'm not.
At least in my case, I'm thinking, like, I am in the suburbs. What are you doing out here? Why are you here?
Yeah.
Just please, I needed a way to go quickly to that Chinese restaurant and grab food and then go back. Stop it.
I'm not taking your weird melted Laffy Taffies. There's not enough fucking gold in the world to make me do that.
I wish it was fun drugs that would be inside these random packages, but
sure.
I have less than 0% faith in this activity, sir.
Yeah.
So please don't kill me. Kurt has now killed 2 people on his live stream, but there's no viewers. No one is paying attention at all.
Yeah.
In fact, there is one guy who keeps kind of popping in and out named it's that Bobby kid from earlier.
Yeah.
And he thinks that it's all fake. And so it's no views, and the person who's watching thinks that it's fake. It's great.
He seems to be kind of the, almost the devil on his shoulder a little bit, like the kind of antagonist of the whole thing, just like, fucking getting in his ear and trying to get him to
really just negging the hell out of Kurt the entire time. Just like, oh, it's lame, it's fake. Oh, how could you think that sketch I did was real, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
One of the passengers though that Kurt ends up picking up is Jesse Adams, who is played by an SNL alum.
It's Sashir Zamata.
Jesse is like a real comedian, like a legit social media superstar in her own way. Which is kind of cute because Superstar, she has like 200,000 followers, which is a lot, but also not truly a lot.
Well, I gotta say, in the comedy world, that's fucking huge. Like, comedians are, it's so funny because, like, stand-up comedy can be a vector to superstardom, but the actual, like, people who, nose to the grindstone, who are fucking, like, doing the thing on, just touring clubs or whatever, like, 200,000 followers is tremendous for that world. You're obviously not going to get to, like, Adam Sandler level or some shit, but, someone at that level is also not going to be performing in the size club that she does her like kind of viral moment in, you know, that would be like what you saw would be kind of the perfect you know, that would be a what am I trying to say? It's kind of that would be the perfect size room, I think, for someone with 200,000 followers who was like huge on social media. You know, that rung true to me, actually.
Well, okay, well, good. I am completely ignorant to what the social media game is for comedians, so I'm glad with that. It's one of those weird things to me of where. At least her followers are on whatever their Instagram knockoff is. And I have never been able to understand the appeal of Instagram. But the fact that, you know, that it works for people, I guess, is cool in its own way.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Instagram. It's probably, I don't know. I've had the exact opposite experience on Twitter that a lot of people had, where it's most of the people that follow me are like either are friends from back home or people who follow my show. And so my interactions on there are usually pretty positive. So a lot of times people are like, Twitter's the sewer. And I'm like, yeah, only if you get into it. But it's fun to watch other people have complete breakdowns and spiral and then just talk to people who like your shit. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah. God forbid you have a wholesome experience.
Yeah. But then Instagram, I feel like that's the one that's I still have not really been able to get into doing the stories thing that they kind of stole from Snapchat, I guess. Which, and partially it's because of the sort of ephemeral nature of it, where it's like, oh yeah, you just post this thing and it's gone. And I'm kind of like, I'm trying to live forever, man. I'm not trying to have my shit go away. Like, I cannot find the motivation. But again, that is 100% me, you know, just kind of being stuck in my ways at 34 or whatever. It's not a, you know, it's a me problem and not a everybody else problem. But yeah, I generally kind of like that. And I gotta say, Sashir Zamata, I did one show with her right before she got SNL. We were both on a show at the Virgil, and she's a really, really nice person, and I think she's funny as hell in like her actual stand-up. So she was kind of in the LA scene for a minute before she obviously moved on to greener pastures in New York and stuff like that. But she fucking rocks. And when she popped up with this movie, I was like, oh hell yeah, like I'm in.
Like, oh, I was doing a room with her not too long ago. Okay, all right,
yeah, not too long ago, and you think, oh wait, it was 6 years ago.
Oh god, yeah. What there was something of where someone was talking about like you know, there was this artifact that came out. It came out like 14 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, weird." And like, yeah, 2007. Just like, god damn it, no, not ready.
Nope.
It is an interesting situation as it comes up with Kurt and Jesse, because there's also a third guy in the spree with them at the same time. It's this his name is Mario Papazian or Papazian. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like a wannabe PUA, just real fuckboy looking type.
Yeah.
And a question I had for you, Rivers, is that even like a real thing? Because like
now
I didn't know those kinds of people like still existed.
Oh man, it's so weird when you actually meet one for real. But yeah, oh god, they're out there. I mean, in LA, a lot of them are managers. You know, when you talk to, you know, you'll see somebody at a comedy show or whatever, and they're rolling there with their manager, and they walk in, and you're just like, boy, you just walked right out of fucking Central Casting. Like, you look evil as shit, bro. And they've got the necklace and the long, you know, the long sexy hair,
the black V-neck, the muscle shirt and overly tanned.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Oh, those people are around. Yeah, I've worked with a couple of them at various jobs that I've had around LA, where I'm just like, you are making grilled cheese sandwiches right now. You are not allowed to be like this. You know, like, it's one thing if you are a fucking manager and you work for, you know, CAA or whatever, but like, tone it down, please. We're trying to make sandwiches and soup right now.
We're not here for this bullshit at this moment. What I really liked in this movie was how it seemed like, at least with Kurt, that he didn't like racism, he didn't like sexism, but obviously he's very okay with the murder side. So it's almost like he isn't racist or sexist because that's not what's popular in the influencer circles,
right,
and things. And because they don't participate in that, he doesn't either, and he buys into like the empty rhetoric.
Yeah.
In other words, like Kurt would have believed that Imagine video that Gal Gadot and her friends released. Like that would have affected him deeply.
By the way, I just got to say, I just realized I looked over at my desk here. I still have the perfume sample, or cologne sample that Jason, the dude I worked with at the grilled cheese store, was like, "Oh, you got to try this this cologne, bro. It's the fucking best." And gave me this, and you can see it's about half full, and it's not because I've used it. It's just because it's just been slowly evaporating on my desk. It smells like fucking garbage. But yes, so I'm just proving to you that I did work with that exact guy, and they will try to sell you cologne.
A guy who's willing to let people microdose on his cologne. Just love to see it.
Yeah.
It really was weird because when I was watching with my partner Devin, she pointed out that that Mario guy is played by an actor named John DeLuca, who was in Disney Channel's Teen Beach and Teen Beach 2 for whatever reason.
Classics.
But he was like it's that guy. Like when he ends up actually getting run over and killed with the car.
What was he, a teen on the Teen Beach, or
I would assume so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things of where like it's nice to see someone trying to break out of that Disney Channel mold, I guess, because it seems like that it's this and soap operas right now for him. So congrats.
Have you ever seen? There's a movie that stars John Hawkes called Too Late. Have you ever seen that movie?
I have not. What's it about?
Okay, so it's one of those movies. The only reason I know about it is I had a friend who was getting her doctorate in film at USC, and one of the fucking coolest things in the world is that she had access to tickets to sit in the back row of Leonard Maltin's film class that he teaches at USC.
Wow.
And I had some friends come into LA, and my buddy Matt, who's also like a big movie nerd, I was like, do you want to go sit in on Leonard Maltin's film class Tuesday night? He's like, fuck yes. So we went, and the whole gimmick with this class is when you get in, he shows first a silent film that he's into from the silent era, and then kind of talks about why it's important, and then he shows an entire movie. And then at the end, it's kind of like inside the actor's studio, except it's inside the director's studio. And usually they'll show the whole movie, and then he'll bring out either the person who made the movie or someone who produced it and what have you. And it was funny because we... the week we did it was we watched Too Late, and then they brought out the director and the producer and all that stuff. But then the next week they showed An American Werewolf in London, and then they brought out J.J. Abrams to talk about why he liked this movie. I was like, motherfuck. But I love John Hawkes. Unfortunately, he wasn't there. But the director had made the movie. It's essentially like, I think it's 5 20-minute vignettes, and the reason is, or not even vignettes, but just scenes. And it's all about, basically this guy's trying to solve a murder. It's kind of a, neo-noir type thing, but they made the movie using like real film, and they shot basically one roll for each scene. So one roll equals 20 minutes. So it's 5 rolls of film, and it's a one shot for each one. And so it's pretty interesting. But the reason I bring it up, the producer, speaking of kids programming, was Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World.
Wow. Okay.
And he was on stage answering questions about the movie and stuff like that. And it was I haven't seen the Teen Beach series, but it was very interesting to see Ryder Strong with a beard, a man now in his 40s.
Yeah, exactly.
just being like, this guy is my neighbor in Laurel Canyon, and he said, "Do you want to produce the thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" The movie is, I would say, it's more interesting than good, but worth checking out. And it was one of those things. I watched the movie, I was like, "Oh, okay," and then I listened to them talk about it. I was like, "Oh, okay, this was really hard to make." So at least caps off to you.
It just is one of those things of where at least it's a project to where they're trying to be pushing the craft a little bit.
Yeah, they're
it
trying to
seems like
do
instead
something.
of just kind of like taking the check. But,
yes,
you know.
they're trying to do something, which is
Yeah.
more than you could say for a lot of stuff. Although we are also the people who were talking about Kong versus Zilla at the beginning of this. So
Hey, that is it's a technical masterpiece.
yeah,
that
it's
film,
its
so
own category. Yeah. Yeah, they were making a film. Kong versus Zilla is content.
It's the eternal grind. Is what we've subjected ourselves to. Now, obviously, by running over the Teen Beach teen guy with his car, the
Man
situation
Beach.
is beginning to escalate a little bit. Kurt picks up 3 passengers all at once and is kind of egged on by Bobby Basecamp to try and make something actually entertaining occur.
Yeah.
And so he takes them to his grandpa's junkyard and then asks them to tag in their Instagram stories #the lesson.
Yeah.
Which was just some of the most serial killer shit in the world. I don't know what those 3 socialites were thinking.
Oh man, yeah, I loved that scene, and it was funny because you're like, they kind of set it up to where you thought you knew it was about to happen, where he would knock their heads off with the beam, and then cut to the guard dog, and then he just drills that one girl's head. Fucking ruled. It was great.
Oh god, it was also a little surreal when I was doing the research on who these 3 socialites were, because it's Frankie Grande, who's Ariana Grande's brother. Then Misha Barton from the OC.
Yeah.
And then Lala Kent, who has like 1.6 million Instagram followers.
Jesus.
So it was 3 famous in their own way kind of people.
Yeah, I recognize Misha Barton, but I didn't know the other 2. That's funny though.
It's one of those things about where I'm like, oh, okay, so like whoever this director is, like in the personal life, obviously you're just calling up your friends and the famous people that you know, and I think it is one of those like, let's make a movie together.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, with that many Instagram followers, it's also a bit of clout chasing on the part of the director,
probably
too, right?
a little bit, yeah. Hoping that you can appear in a story.
Yeah.
I guess it's probably about as good a time as any. For the role of Kurt, Joe Keery and the director hung out like for a day and a half and just watched cringe compilation videos of failed wannabe viral people, like people who had like tiny amounts of total viewing because they were just that cringe.
Yes.
And they just watched it for a day and a half. And Joe Keery said that he based his performance on how those people acted. The strange thing is the way this director talks and the way Kurt talks are almost identical in the exact pattern. And so I don't think that the director is understanding that Joe Keery probably also based a lot of it on the director himself.
Oh, that rules. I actually just heard that, we mentioned American Psycho. I heard recently, I was listening to some podcast where they were talking about it, and apparently Christian Bale was kind of looking for a direction to like, all right, how am I going to play this guy? And he saw Tom Cruise on The Tonight Show and called the director and was like, holy shit, turn on the fucking Tonight Show right now. And you go back and watch American Psycho with that lens and you're like, oh my God, he is just doing Tom Cruise.
That is a real source of inspiration. Tom Cruise terrifies me.
Yes.
I saw a recent headline of where, like, for the latest Mission Impossible movie, he is legitimately going to be driving a motorcycle off of a cliff, or he already has.
Oh.
Like a real stunt of where just falling off of a cliff. And
look, the world has needed Evel Knievel for a long time, and now, I mean, honestly, dude, tell me you wouldn't fly to Vegas to watch Tom Cruise jump over the fountains at Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, it really seemed like Tom Cruise got rejected like way, way, way back in the day from that Waterworld show that exists. And he's just been making the world pay ever since.
Yeah. I mean, it's just little guy energy, man. It can do a lot. It can really do a lot. I'm not kidding. Like I'm only live 4.5 hours from Vegas. If Tom Cruise jumps over anything in Vegas, I'll fucking drive there. I'll see it.
Well, we'll have to see, because when the Raiders officially open the stadium with all the fans this season, I think it'll be fun.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Cruise pops up there.
Yeah,
just kind of skydives in.
Yeah, I just hate that the direction our world has gone is in the, if celebrities are going to do something stupid for money, it's always MMA. And you're like, okay, that's boring, man. Just fucking jump off or something with a motorcycle.
Again, it's a return to tradition.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise really knew what the fuck he was doing.
Dude, I actually just recently went to Twin Falls, Idaho, where they still have the ramp that they built for Evel Knievel's Evel Knievel's attempt to do the rocket sled over the Snake River Canyon. And I walked up to the top of that ramp. I looked out, and famously the whole thing was the parachute went off too early, and he floated down to the bottom. Yep. He didn't actually make the canyon, but also I was looking at it. I was like, no fucking way. There's no goddamn way. There's no chance. It's just a fucking zero possibility of that working. So hats off, because that was if he was just trolling everybody and he was going to do that anyway. Fucking great movie, Evel Knievel. New level of respect.
that element of thrill sinking, I think, is something about where like the next Evel Knievel is currently grinding his way, trying not to die on TikTok right now.
Yes.
I think, doing
the
backwards motorcycle trampoline jumps or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say the next Evel Knievel is superhuman, man. Have you seen that guy?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh, buddy, it's superhuman with 2 M's. And his whole thing is he's this guy in Florida, and he basically does flying elbow drops onto increasingly dangerous items.
Oh my God.
And so he'll be standing up on top of this huge platform, and he'll go, he's like, I'm going to do an elbow drop onto a coffee maker and flower pots. This is for all my juggalos and juggalettes. Whoop, whoop. And then he'll take his shirt off and he go, fuck this shit, and then he jumps onto whatever it is, and he just starts screaming and crying, and then the video cuts off. Every video is like 25 seconds. And
my God.
I have sat there and watched hundreds of these in a row, and it's always the same thing, but it's never not compelling, where you're just like, holy shit, dude, you're jumping on, and it's always like weird combinations of stuff. There was one where he's like, I'm going to jump onto a microwave. And you're like, that doesn't give.
No, it does not. It does not seem like there's a walkaway factor involved.
Right. There's a lot where he's like, I'm jumping onto 2 tables and barbed wire. And you're like, okay, well, the barbed wire is going to suck, but at least the tables will somewhat soften the blow. But there's one where he does an elbow drop onto a microwave, and it really hurts him a lot.
Well, shout out to him and his future GoFundMe. You never quite know when the last video will be.
Oh, yeah. Well, but that's the thing, man. I mean, back to the whole concept of this fucking movie. That motherfucker gets at least 150, 200,000 hits on everything he posts, and it's 23 seconds.
Exactly, and that's legit. Meanwhile, Kurt, he's frustrated because he only has 5 to 6 viewers, even after doing a triple kill, and so then he decides to drive on over to Bobby Basecamp's house and confront him.
Yeah.
And that was just a delightful scene of kind of seeing the Bobby that exists when not in the streamer mode.
Yeah.
And then how he's able to just turn it on.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I like that. Yeah, he didn't steal his phone, right? He just linked his account to Bobby's, I think, at that point.
Yeah. Well, because he confronts Bobby. Bobby turns on his whatever chest camera thing he has.
Yeah.
And then starts streaming and talking about how Kurt is a loser. And then Kurt just kind of pulls out a knife and stabs Bobby. And all of Bobby's fans think that it's fake.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of prankster that Bobby was. And then also how Kurt had been, at least from some of the comments I was able to read, of where Bobby had done a fake stabbing of Kurt in the early days of his channel.
I missed
that.
So
people thought oh, okay, well they're just setting something up for this.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I love that he's kind of his antagonist. And have you seen Airsoft Fatty? Are you aware of that guy?
No. I feel like now I have so much research I need to do.
Okay, so there's a 50-minute documentary that kind of shows, his greatest hits, but basically he's just this very, large guy who lives in Michigan, and he like gets in lightsaber fights with his shirt off, and occasionally falls down, and he eats disgusting things like meat salad, which is just like hot dogs and like a bunch of shit mixed in with hot dogs and like butter. It's horrifying. But there's
sound ideal.
There's a documentary where they go and some other YouTuber goes to like interview Airsoft Fatty, and they meet up with the guy that he's always lightsaber fighting with, whose name is Robert. And it was very much a little bit of that same dynamic of, you could tell Robert is just a shit stirrer. Like, he's just trying to piss this guy off a little bit. And the name of the documentary is Full Force, because that is what Robert uses when he lightsaber fights. Airsoft Fatty is just like, you can't go full force on me. And he's just yelling at him and shit. And Robert is just is totally kind of lifeless behind the eyes, and you can tell he's just a little fucker. He's just there to get his goat.
He found a guy who he can continually pester and annoy, and more power to him, I guess, ultimately with it. So after taking over the stream, now Kurt is able to jump from all the way up to like 5,000 consistent viewers at this point. Like, he's operating at a little bit of like clinical efficiency when he gets pestered by his dad, who is like a failed music producer and now current empty strip club DJ guy to drive him to work.
Now David Arquette's character in this is far and away the most realistic of just people I've met in LA. Like that,
I think he also gives legitimately a fantastic performance as his dad too.
Yeah, no, he's good, man. Like, David Arquette's, I mean, I'm biased because he's a wrestler and stuff like that, but man, he's a good fucking actor. I like David Arquette. Like I said, I'm rooting for the guy. But that was so fucking accurate as far as character types that I've encountered, especially
when he goes live. And, he has like 6 viewers, and some of the people are like, "Hey, Chris, looking good, buddy." Like, "Oh, hey, Chris, miss you at the meetings recently."
Yes.
And stuff like that. Just like, like the old people world that exists online.
Oh, yeah. That was highly, highly accurate. I in the pre-Panini days did stand up at there was a place called the Liquid Zoo, which is it's a karaoke bar that has karaoke 6 nights of the week and then comedy on one night of the week. And the night they do comedy, all the karaoke people show up and are mad that they're not going to be able to sing.
Yep.
But,
oh man.
And yet they hang out anyway, and then they're just mad the whole night. So it's a great comedy situation. But yeah, David Arquette's character definitely reminded me of quite a few patrons that I've encountered at the Liquid Zoo.
Just with such like an empty, hollow sadness to him, and how he's using his son to get to the club, and then there's a famous DJ there at the club named Uno. Yeah, and she's Japanese, I believe.
Yeah, I think
Japanese
that's right.
or Korean.
I assumed Japanese, but I'm not positive.
Regardless, Kurt, of course, asks to tag her. And Kurt's way of speaking with people is the way, as I think Jesse Adams put it well earlier, of speaking like a Twitter bot.
Yeah.
Like follow for follow, fave for fave. Come on.
Yeah.
He has no concept of how real world socialization actually operates.
Yeah.
It's fascinating as a character study.
Yeah, that scene was that was brutal. I mean, aside from the actual like murders, that was the most brutal scene to watch, where she was just like, he was like, "Are you going to tag me? I haven't got my notification yet." And she's just like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And it just kind of fades out as she like starts to ignore him, and you're just like, "Oh, man."
It really seemed like Kurt was also going to walk away from Uno. And like he wasn't going to assume anything. He was just going to kind of believe her. Yeah. But then the chat kept dropping $1 donations, saying like Kurt got, or like she's not going to actually tag you, bro, and stuff like that. And so it's weird, like how the chat also made him smarter by ridiculing him.
Yeah.
And so he kind of used them like a divining rod of sorts.
But also they were, antagonizing him in the same way that Bobby was before before he got the people kind of replaced Bobby in that role.
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't seem like Kurt cared too much about like what the people were actually saying. Like he already had his audience, and that's what he cares most about.
Right.
And so like you can say whatever you want to me, just watch what I'm doing. Like, that level of narcissism.
Yeah, exactly. But it is funny that, like, you know, at one point he only had one viewer, and it was this antagonistic, like, child, you know, who had an audience, and then he starts to get a small audience, and then they just, you know, he basically starts getting what he wants and finds that, oh, this didn't do anything different. Like,
no, he's not suddenly universally loved by any means.
Nothing has changed.
Then the other female DJ, she steps outside and meets Kurt at the car and asks him to drive her to a taco truck to get something famous.
Yes,
anything famous.
Yeah, that rung very true to me. Because my day job here in LA is working as a tour guide, it's such a fun job. I fucking love it. It's the only thing I've ever been good at, because it's just like, all right, here's these 4 strangers, make them like you for 6 to 8 hours. It's like, okay, I can do that. But a lot of times I am, you know, and this is my whole exposure pretty much to this generation is, you know, people, it'll be mom and dad and their 2 kids who are like 12 and 15. And that, you know, I designed a tour for my company called the Instagram Tour, that
nice.
We sold so many of those fucking tours, dude. Like, it became one of the most popular things that we offered, because the whole thing with LA is we have these, you know, murals all over that have become kind of famous on Instagram, and
the angel wings on every street corner.
Yeah, exactly. So I would, you know, I'd take people to the arts district and we'd get pictures at the original angel wings. That was always my hook. I'm like, no, like they're all over the city, but I'm going to take you to the, you know, angel wings #1, you know?
Brilliant.
So I would take them there. And then there's a series of steps that run through the Hollywood Hills in Silver Lake and Echo Park. And someone painted the steps to look like, there's one set that looks like piano keys that kind of go like 100 feet up into the hills, and then there's another set that is painted like rainbow, like each stair is a different color. So I'd take them there, you know, and it was funny because I was, you know, when I was planning out the tour and like designing it and everything, I did kind of look through, you know, some influencers Instagrams and stuff around LA. It was just like, okay, and it was a very, very popular thing, and that became, I mean, that is a real thing. People, you know, especially kids, they're like, yeah, take me to something famous, let's do it. You know,
they have Little Mermaid syndrome. They want to go where the people are.
Exactly. We used to go to, there's a donut place around the corner from my house, and it's funny because it's not really near anything super interesting. It's just in, you know, kind of the edges of Koreatown, called California Donuts. But they started making panda donuts. That look like a panda.
Weird.
They're like it's like a, you know, cream filled donut, but then they've got white and black icing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then they cut an Oreo in half and stick them in to make the ears and stuff like that. And I think I want to say it was like Ariana Grande, but it was some, you know, huge you know, online social media personality took a picture with one of those, and then all of a sudden it was like, we got to get that fucking donut. So I added that to the tour as well, and it was the best because every time they'd be like, do you want a donut? We'll buy you one. I'm like, yes, I would.
This is amazing. This is the first time anyone's ever offered me one. Thank you so much.
Give me that maple bacon bar. Yeah, so I'm that part definitely rang true to me, where it's like, take me somewhere famous. I've 100% had people in my van just being like, you know, we've got our set like protocol of like, we're going to these 6 places on the tour, and then they'll just be like, we want to go see like a real LA taco place. And
something authentic.
Well, but that's the thing, is like, I am more than happy to drive them to the one that's around the corner from my house called Tacos Al Pastor. I'm like, this is as real as it fucking gets, man. You can get the tamarindo soda. You can get the good you know, cabeza tacos if you're adventurous. So I've taken
just
a lot of
people. Just
people
take them to a Taco Bell. Just watch as their eyes glaze over.
Buddy, Australians, man. I don't know. So as of 2019, I'm not sure what the scene on the ground is in Australia as of right now, but as of 2019, I think there was one Taco Bell in Australia, and it's in Melbourne.
Wow.
But other than that, they don't have access to it, and all those Australians, they they consume nothing but American television for the most point, and Taco Bell is like a reference, and
exactly.
So
living Moss, it's a lifestyle,
dude. You would not believe how many fucking Australians I have driven through the drive-thru at Taco Bell on my tour. And it's so funny because they'll always ask me like, oh, what should I get? I'm like, it's cheesy gordita crunch or nothing, baby, and they don't fucking believe me. They're like, well, I'm just gonna get the original taco just to, and I'm like, yeah, but no one eats those. Come on, man. Cheesy gordita crunch. What are you doing? Or Crunchwrap Supreme.
I myself am a Crunchwrap Supreme addict.
Yeah,
that shit is the thing of where, like, well, why do you enjoy that? It's like, well, because it's a burrito basically, but sideways, and with a hard taco shell in the middle. What's not to love?
Yeah. Shout out to my friend Kyle Clark. He has a joke about Taco Bell where he's like, Taco Bell's not a restaurant. Taco Bell is an abstract art piece daring you to criticize it. It's like, yeah, it's a burrito, but it's shaped like a hexagon. What do you think about it?
That's brilliant. I love it.
Shout out. At Kyle Clark is rad. He's the best.
One note that I had for this kind of part of the movie is that when Kurt is standing in line waiting to order, he's talking to some woman ahead of him, and it starts off well enough and she's kind of friendly, but then he of course weirds her out by talking about how he feels good and how he wants to like make a sex tape anytime.
Yes.
Like it just was cringe inducing, and I think that's something that really made this movie stand out a lot for me, which is that it's a horror movie that isn't afraid to embrace the cringe side of horror a little bit.
Yeah.
Of where, like, not everything was super bloody or super violent, but it made your skin crawl. But, not because you thought he was cool, but because he was so pathetic and so just slimy as an individual.
Yeah. Well, it's the same reason that it's difficult for me to watch more than one episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm at a time. Like, I adore that show. I think it's brilliant, but it makes me fucking just like it's. I've always described that show as horror comedy because you're almost watching. You're like, what's about to happen. Very similar. You're like, Jason's gonna pop out from behind the corner and cut a person's head off, but you're just like still not ready for it. So you're like, Larry is going to say something fucked up. And you're just like, oh no, oh man. But
something, this is going to be good.
Yeah. So that's a good point. They did definitely make use of that.
It's also at this point that we're able to kind of figure out that Kurt has been given the name as the rideshare killer.
Yeah.
And you think that he's going to get caught. And then that's when we get like an ACAB moment, I think, of this movie, which is when the DJ who drank some of the poisoned water wakes up to a cop knocking on the window and pulls the gun out that Kurt had stolen from Bobby and shoots a cop just right in the fucking head.
Yeah.
I was shocked at that rapid escalation that took place.
Yeah. That was that whole scene was really really well done, I thought, because then the cops of course go like chasing after her and which leaves him to kind of get away.
Yeah, he's able to flee, and this is my favorite scene of the movie was following Kurt when he's being chased by police, because you're following on his camera and then you're following on the cop camera, and then as the chase gets a little bit more high profile, you're able to follow it on other people's social media feeds. Almost like you're changing angles of it. And so I really thought that was incredibly well done on the director's part.
Yeah, I thought so too. And especially like around here, like, we've got that Citizen app, which is just nothing but fucking madness. And a lot of it is just people who are like, yeah, there's a car on fire at the gas station, and they're just like narrating it, and you're like, okay, man.
Hey, I mean, Citizen is like the next generation's version of Nextdoor. I appreciate it.
It's just the juice, man. It's just the juice. There is no one asking for brownie recipes. There's nothing nice about it. It's just like, there is a guy standing on 7th Street, and he has a scimitar, and we don't know what he's doing with it. Like...
Could be practicing, could be about to go meet like his ex-wife. We don't know exactly.
Yeah, I had I'd been back in Alabama for like 4 months, and so my I guess my iPhone just kind of undownloaded Citizen automatically, like to save room or whatever, and so I hadn't looked at it in months, and then somebody on my Twitter asked me like, hey, what happened to Citizen? And I looked, I was like, oh, it's just not been updating, and I wonder if there's been any crazy shit, and I pulled it up, and literally the first thing, woman threatening people with a wine bottle. I was like, all right, we're back, baby.
Yeah, that's how we know that the panini is almost over. That the end is in sight. Right? We can finally heal as a nation.
Yeah, we're back to normal weapons. During the panini, it was just people. It was like a guy with a weed whacker is threatening people, and you're like, Jesus, man.
Seems incredibly harsh, but yeah. So Kurt is able to escape the cops. He also crashes his car through the homeless encampment, and it was a unique insight into his mind, because Kurt hates the homeless, but because they don't have a social media presence and like they don't care that no one knows who they are, which is just like a real twisted way to view things.
Right.
Kurt then follows Jesse by kind of stalking social media and seeing that she has a opening at the club, or she's the headliner at this club, right?
Yeah, it appeared to be just based on what I was looking. It was like the Bros of Comedy or something like that.
Okay,
it appeared to be, and there's a lot of this in LA where you've got comedy clubs. Most of the comedy clubs in LA book internally, meaning the people who manage the club book the performers. But then within that, there's a lot of clubs like the Improv, for instance, who will bring in their own promoters and they book their own shows.
Weird. Okay,
yeah,
like subletting almost.
Yeah, exactly. So like our show that we ran at West Side Comedy Theater before the pandemic, we booked the show ourselves. So we were essentially the producers within the system. So that is actually fairly common here. So it sort of seemed like one of those things where Kyle Mooney's character was maybe the producer of the show, and they had just booked a big guest for their show within a comedy club.
Got it. Yeah, Kyle Mooney. Really, what this movie is showing me is that SNL is not making full use of anyone on staff there to the full extent of their talents. It is a shame.
I've gotten so I have a dear friend of mine, Joe Rains, who sits in on our podcast quite a bit. We started doing stand up together 10 years ago in Birmingham. I've known the guy forever. I love him to death. But we will get into it about SNL and just fight like fucking dogs about it, because I am of the opinion that SNL is eerily similar to the WWE about 10 years ago. They're kind of doing what they did then, which is they're not making new stars. Instead, they are just bringing back like nostalgia and trying to pop a rating, where it's like,
fascinating.
And so
okay.
I maintain that it's that thing of like SNL sucks now, and it's not because the cast is not good. Most of the people on that cast are fucking brilliant, and every once in a while, the last sketch of the night, they'll actually cut them loose, and you're like, damn, that was great. Why don't you make the whole show this?
Exactly.
I mean, we just saw like this fucking weekend they bring on Elon Musk. Why? Because he's he's controversial and he'll pop a rating, because people will be like, oh, they're like, I love this guy because I'm like a crypto weirdo, and they'll watch it for that, or I hate this guy because he made all of his money off of a fucking emerald mine like a cartoon supervillain. And so, but and that goes to like my example of this that I always cite, and I think it's accurate, and this is their version of bringing back The Undertaker at the age of 79 to fight at WrestleMania instead of having fucking somebody talented do it, or not that The Undertaker's not talented, but somebody current who's fucking awesome. My version of that is this. When the Brett Kavanaugh hearing was going on, okay, the role of Brett Kavanaugh is such an easy thing to play. Literally anybody could do it and put their own spin on it, because the whole thing is he's like a drunk prep boy. He's a drunk frat boy.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to play it as. And you have so many fucking talented people like Kyle Mooney. Like, I'd love to see what Kyle Mooney did with that. But instead, they brought on Matt Damon to play the easiest thing to play, and you're just like, what? But this doesn't help your show. This just helps, your show. I guess like people on Twitter will be like, oh wow, isn't it crazy Matt Damon did this? Or they bring on Robert De Niro to play Robert Mueller for no reason, and then
oh my god, I've already blocked all of that out in my head.
And then Ben Stiller to play Jared Kushner. Who the fuck can't play Jared Kushner and make it interesting? And then of course like the grand supreme example is having Alec Baldwin do a bad Trump for 5 fucking years, when it's like Anthony Atamanek is sitting right here, James Adomian is sitting right here, my friend James Austin Johnson is sitting right here. Like there is so many people who could do good Trump impressions, and it's like you just did it drives me fucking crazy. And so the fact that you have these really talented players, Sashir Zamata and Cal Mooney, who's still on the show, I guess, and they, when they do let him do his own thing, it's always brilliant. But it does show you're just like, man, you guys are wasting so much goddamn talent. So all I'm saying is Sashir Zamata and Kyle Mooney, they are the revival of SNL. They are it's a great tag team just sitting right there, and they're just sitting in catering. Get with it, Lauren.
We'll see what ends up happening. Hopefully this podcast, because we know Lauren is a listener. That's the true thing.
Yeah.
So Jessie, while doing her show, she obviously kind of brings up Kurt a little bit and the weird experience she had with him. But then as kind of the conclusion of her set, she ends up destroying her phone on stage as a mic drop of sorts.
Yeah.
And that was where I was like, okay, so Chekhov's broken phone is now at play.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Let's
now
see
she doesn't
what
have
ends
a
up
phone.
happening.
Yeah.
It also seemed like it was one of those things of where the pivot point, it seems like, for her character of she's now getting primed to go from being purely a stand-up to being like an activism type superstar.
Right.
And seeing that groundwork getting laid a little bit with the performativeness of it.
Yeah, well, and I gotta say, that was until the very end of the film, which did pay it off in a way that I felt was realistic. That was the cringiest moment for me a little bit, where I was just like, because you do see comedians doing that, especially, my God, during the fucking during the Panini, man, you just watch people falling apart online. Doing shit like that, where it's just like, making a big public stand about how they're leaving social media and shit. And you're just like, I don't know, man. Like, that's cool. If you were serious, you wouldn't tell a fucking soul. You just disappear.
Exactly. You have to let people know so then they can acknowledge the void of where your account should be.
Exactly.
So then when you reactivate, they'll also know that you came back.
Exactly.
That sort of thing. It also just seems weird. And I wanted to ask you, with your knowledge of the LA scene and all, I would imagine that like so much has happened over the past year with like Black Lives Matter and with the various riots protests, whatever you would want to call it, all of like the discourse and the different policies, different administrations, and you would think that would have some effect on actual comedy as a scene, but I'm willing to bet it's still all about like matching on Hinge and like eating ass, probably.
Well, that's the thing. I'm kind of in Schrodinger's box a little bit right now because I haven't been on stage since last March. So
okay,
it's
interesting.
Really, dude, it's the weirdest thing that, the craziest time in our lives probably. And I personally had no access to getting on stage. I had no access to the scene. Nothing was open. And even the stuff that was going was like, the interesting thing that's going on now is things are starting to kind of reopen around here. And I still have yet to go to an open mic around town. So I truthfully don't know what's happening, but I imagine in the next couple of weeks I will. But it's this thing of I got my little ear to the ground of what's going on in the scene at the moment. And it seems like everyone who was kind of the big fish in the whatever size pond you want to say that the LA comedy scene is, they're all either sitting at home like I am, or they just disappeared. They went back to wherever they came from. And the entire scene is just people who have just started doing stand-up. And a lot of them you know, I don't want to generalize too much, but there is definitely there is a Rogan effect, and it's fucking real, where people are just like, people are trying to silence me because I fucking do this and this, and you're like, you're not even good at stand up yet. Do that first. Like the biggest, like
there's nothing more edgy than taking on what the popular beliefs of 50 years ago were.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know, like it's
the way it goes.
Yeah. It's this thing that, you know, at least in when I was coming up, it's this thing of people always idolize Hicks and Carlin, but for the wrong reason. Where it's like, yeah, Bill Hicks didn't give a shit, man. He fucking said exactly what he wanted, and he didn't care if he offended people. It's like, yeah, because he did stand-up for 20 years before he had that evolution as a performer, so he could back up his kind of edgy takes with fucking jokes, and you can't do that a year in. Learn to make jokes about your fucking dog and your girlfriend, and then we can move on to whatever stupid social commentary you were, but you have to be funny first. And that's a thing that you can do, you know, if you're not crazy and you're willing to learn and grow as a performer, you can become funny. Some people get on stage, they're 21 years old, and they're just amazing, and you're like, get the fuck out of here. That's crazy, you know? But stand-up is a craft, ultimately. It's a craft more than it is an art, truthfully. And it's a thing that, you know, the more you do woodworking, the better you're going to get as a woodworker. And, you know, it's very similar to that. I mean, but people want to skip that crucial step of learning how to write jokes and stuff and just jump into being an edgelord. And it's like, yeah, George Carlin fucking did nightclubs as a two-hander in the 50s and shit. Like, he paid his goddamn dues before he tried to blow your mind. You know, like, you have to know something before you can fucking rock people's worlds and shit like that. You know, so but apparently that's what's happening now, is there is a lot of like 25-year-old fucking people in the scene who are just like, you know, fucking, you can't cancel me. Like, it's that. And you're just like, God, just,
nice,
oh my God,
nice.
Shut the fuck up. I hate you. But again, this is coming from someone, I haven't done stand up since March. I've pretty much just been chilling at the house doing podcasts, and that's about it. But I'm about to jump right back into it, and we'll see. I am positive I'm going to suck. I have never been more certain of anything in my life that I'm going to suck for a while before I get back to where I was at. But what you're talking about is that's kind of the question. You're like, do you address all this shit, or are people so tired of it that you can just move right past it? You know, so yeah. I got to test the water. I think as with
anything else, it's well, what new perspective can I provide insight on? And if it's about the protest, great. If it's about eating ass, also great. You know, find a thread,
right?
I guess.
Right, but yeah, it's you know, it's a lot of like I remember I have a very vivid memory of when I first got here. They used to have at Universal Studios the John Lovett's Comedy Club, which used to be B.B. King's Blues Bar.
Okay.
And so it had a stage that was big enough for a full blues band. So massive, like a massive stage. And I'm not kidding, there were 2 balconies stacked on top. So you had the floor with the seats, and then there was one balcony, and then there was a second balcony. So in order to play to the entire house, you would literally have to be with your head tilted all the way back to even maybe see the people at the top. And
my God.
It was just the worst setup for comedy you can imagine. But I remember I went there and I was doing a show, and then they had a mic afterwards, and I was like, all right, I'll hang out for this mic and try to get some new shit done. And I'm not kidding. There were like 2 to 3 different people who had some variation on the joke. Like, if someone paid me $1 million to suck a dick and I did it, would that make me gay? And
smooth. The height of comedy right there.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is fucking wild. And then when the second guy did another version of like, would I suck a dick for $1 million? You're just like, what are you guys talking about? What are you doing in your free time that you both arrived to this as a thing you wanted to address this evening? Like,
yeah, at that point, then, like, whether or not you planned it or not, the third guy should come up and be like, I've decided I won't suck $1 million for $999,999. But would I? Yeah.
Yeah. When it was my turn at the mic, I just went up, I was like, all right, it's great to be here on Homophobia Mountain. Hope everybody's having a good night. Yeah, it was rough. So I feel like the scene has kind of reverted, at least according to my sources, has sort of reverted to that to some extent. We're just like, oh, this is going to be a long 6 months while we separate the 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 cream from the rest.
Yeah, well, go with God, I guess, would be what I would have to say, because that doesn't sound like a fun experience whatsoever. Having to work on your material, but then also having audiences that might not be primed to hear good material, because there's just an avalanche of shit also surrounding it all.
The good news with the LA scene, there's no audience. Open mics are 100% comedians are the audience, so...
Yeah, you love it. You love it. It's a wonderful industry, I'm sure.
It's great.
Be a part of.
Yeah. So I'm one of those people. I'm hanging out outside most of the time. I can't. I can, if there's someone who's especially bad, I will sit down to watch that. But for the most part, I just can't. I'm just like, you gotta be.
You see a guy walking in with a puppet, you're like, all right, I gotta check this out. Gotta see what's going on here.
Yeah. For me, it's like you gotta either be the best or the worst. Otherwise, I'm not sitting there for it.
Jessie, she has like this great show. Kyle Mooney's character Miles and her, they go out for drinks. Kyle Mooney thinks that he's like gonna be able to fuck her.
Yeah.
And then like she calls another rideshare service called GoGo.
Yeah.
Because they shut Spree down because there's a serial killer going on Spree. So she calls a GoGo driver, and wouldn't you know it, the GoGo driver ends up being Kurt, because Kurt killed the other GoGo driver off screen somewhere.
Yeah, that GoGo driver was the most, he was extremely true to life. That seems like most of my Uber drivers. They're definitely more like that than Kurt. You're just like, man, you're too old to be, you should have, why are you doing this, man? I'm so sorry that society has made you do this for a living. You should be home with your grandchildren and, singing songs on the piano or something.
Yeah, doing literally anything other than this.
Yeah,
but,
it's just sad. I felt that was...
It's what happened. So
yeah,
he ends up kidnapping her, and then he says that he's going to drive her home. And then she's like, well, my house is the other way. He's like, no, we're going to my house. And just some real like, oh shit. Which, I guess it would have been like at least when I was watching it the first time, it was a real like, that good little way to kind of twist the knife a bit.
Yeah.
The trailer for this movie gives away pretty much everything that happens in the movie.
Oh, really?
Like in rapid succession, quick fire clips. Which is just so sad.
Yeah.
So if anyone is interested in watching this movie,
don't
know why you would listen to this point and then decide or not. But don't watch the trailer for it. Just watch it, cold. I think is the best way.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's kidnapped her. They're driving to his house. She tries to choke him out with the phone cord. They end up kind of wrestling for a bit, and then he's able to knock her unconscious. And then he is able to further drive closer to the house. It gets a little fuzzy for me kind of as I'm going through things.
He drags her out of the car, and then he's going to run her over, but he keeps getting comments and donations coming in, and then he looks up.
Oh, that's right.
He looks up 3 times, and the third time she's fucking gone.
Oh, God. It makes the chat almost admirable in that way. Like,
yeah.
Oh, well, at least they saved one person.
Right,
They might have inspired one kill, but they saved another, so congrats at least. It is also interesting that, like, when Kurt is watching Jesse's videos, he's not understanding how it's relatable.
Right,
because it's not relatable solely to him. And I love the line of, like, well, like, my grandma died in March. I don't have a grandma. This isn't relatable to me.
Yeah.
It was surreal, I think, just in general. So, he gets distracted, and he and her fight, and they crash into the wall of his house, and Kurt is able to escape, and Jesse is then confronted by David Arquette, who's just fucking strung out of his mind at this point, wondering why the fuck is there a woman who crashed a car into his house.
Yeah, that was I enjoyed that that scene a lot. Like I said, felt bad for David Arquette, but it was good.
Hey, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine, because that's when we get like the big reveal that Kurt killed his mom at like the beginning of the movie.
Yes,
and so that's kind of one of the things that kicked off his rampage. at least it seems to me like the order of operations was that like Kurtz was helping his mom move something. They found baggies of his dad's drug stash. That upset the mom, and then Kurt snapped, and then that's what led him to kill his mom and then start the lesson.
Right.
Just kind of in like the timeline of events here, which is with the, again, I think that the selective editing format that was chosen made it a much more compelling movie than if we had watched kind of just that straight presented timetable of events. But that could also just be me. Kurt shoots his dad, which is just a real like, well, okay. I guess that's all the David Arquette they could afford.
Yeah.
For this. He then also tries to kill Jesse, but she pins him to the wall with the car. And so that was, just fun to watch, because not only does she rev the engine to hit him, but she keeps revving the engine to squish him.
Yeah. He starts throwing up blood on the hood and shit. It was great.
Oh my God, that was great. And then she gets out of the car to try and confirm that he's dead. And then he kind of spasms and tries to go at her one last time. She beats him to death with his own phone.
Yes.
Which just
perfect.
Social commentary.
Yeah.
Brilliance, right? Then it kind of ends with her looking and seeing the chat and all of the comments, then asking her to take a photo with Kurt's dead body.
Yes.
And then she does.
Yes.
And that's one of those points of where, like, when people are wondering, is this a comedy or not? Like, of course it's a comedy.
Yeah, of course.
Like, it has those beats.
Yeah, I think all horror, I mean, I've said this before, horror and comedy work exactly the same way. It was always that weird thing, like when Get Out came out, everybody was like, oh, isn't it crazy this comedian made a horror movie? I'm like, no, it's the same. You hide the thing you're about to do and then you spring it on people. It's the same mechanism. You're just you're seeking a different reaction, obviously, but it's ordered in the same way. And plus, every comedian I know, we all think about horror movies nonstop. So those are indelibly linked, and most horror movies, even like the classic ones, have like hilarious weird moments,
Precisely.
Yeah, so I loved that.
I mean, it is fascinating because it also seems like a lot of people who are into horror love comedy.
Yeah,
like it's like there's a mutual admiration of cross genre appeal.
Yeah, so, it's just about acknowledging people's expectations and then twisting it. It's the same concept.
I know that he's a problematic guy, of course, in his own way, but there was a Vince Vaughn movie called Freaky, where he plays like a Jason Voorhees type, that Freaky Fridays with like a high school teenage girl.
I've heard that's good. I haven't watched it yet, but I plan on it.
It is very good. I enjoyed it a whole lot because it made me go like, of course, like, yeah, Vince Vaughn, like if he was in like a horror movie, that would be terrifying because he's 6'5".
Yeah,
which is a huge dude.
Yeah, well, and he is in that terrible Gus Van Sant remake of Psycho. Where the only thing they did different was they explicitly made him jerking off watching the Janet Leigh stand in the shower.
Hey, you have to add your own little creative footprint. Otherwise, people will say it's a direct ripoff.
Yeah,
come on now.
I think it was Anne Heche, actually, right? I think so. Anyway, sorry.
No. It's perfectly fine because we're now kind of like in the epilogue of the movie where Jessie becomes a nationwide star. She does like the performative activism and is taking credit for disrupting Kurt's rampage.
Yes.
Like how one female comedian stood up and said no.
Yes.
Blah, blah,
yeah.
blah.
That was the part that made the earlier cringy thing where she destroys her phone. I was like, oh no, this is real. This is how it goes. Someone's like, I'm leaving social media forever, and then someone gives you some flowers for something you did, and you're just like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah, I mean, how am I not like? I gotta say thank you to them.
Yeah,
they asked me to tag them.
Yeah, she is Hannah Gadsby. She is Nanette. Like the whole point of that is like, well, this this art form has not actually solved any of my problems, so I'm not going to do it anymore. Wow, we love how you did that. Oh, okay, well, I'm back now. And you're like, all right. kind of.
Oh, great. Now I actually have to be like funny. I can't just do a retread of that same commentary style humor.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I get that rang very true to me.
Kurt, meanwhile, him and like his spree killings had become revered kind of in like the Elliot Rogers mold in small corners of the internet, like kind of 8kun and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Which is very interesting because the reveal that this is basically like a supercut made by whatever this channel board is. It answered a lot of questions about like, well, how did he make this? When did he make this? Like, even if he's not charismatic, he has an eye for editing. Yeah, at the very least. You know, like I was gonna go like, is this what he's gonna find out about himself, or what? But no. Of course, it was like a group project where they all got together for the snuff film.
Yeah, I fucking loved that ending because that also, I was just like, that is exactly what it would be. That is 100% how this would go down. Like, no lies detected on that shit. That is exactly what this guy would be.
I mean, just again, when people are talking about like he's based God Kurt, and all that other stuff, it just like it really seems like he just the director took a random screenshot and then kind of name replaced as he saw appropriate. To try and make it work. Yeah,
it's so. I mean, it is that Elliot Rodger shit. It's exactly how that situation has continued to go down. Long after that event, it's that's still how that guy is treated in those circles.
Yeah, and I know that some people that I've listened to and watched some of their videos of people specifically who didn't like this movie. They bring up Elliot Rodgers a lot, and they talk about like how this is kind of like you're drawing these comparisons and you're glorifying it in its own way. And I really feel like those people missed out on the overarching message, because at no point was Kurt ever viewed like as a cool guy in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. It was showing that like how the fandom turned him into this symbol of something, but not that he actually was endearing in any way.
Right. Well, it's that, I mean, it's the Scorsese effect, right? It's what people say about Goodfellas and Wolf of Wall Street, where it's like, yeah, he was like glorifying these guys, and you're like, not really. Like, if you watch those movies, like they had
watching people who only remember like the first 2/3 of any movie. Right?
It's like they have moments of glory in those films? Of course they did, but then you see how it ends up for everyone, and the message is like, don't be like this. These are bad fucking people. Like, Tony Soprano is not the hero of that show. Like, you know what I mean?
You gotta be careful. I don't think we can say that anymore with how beloved Sopranos is.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, but you know what I mean? It's that thing of like, if you're a person who can, you know, analyze any piece of art at all, you're like, yeah, these are not... This is not a glorification of this lifestyle. These guys are fucking like Wolf of Wall Street's the bad one, right? Because that's the one everybody points at, where it's and to be
fair,
Fight
Club,
Fight Club's another good example. But yeah, well, in Wolf of Wall Street specifically, like I was just watching, they have that. There's a series on HBO Max right now that's called Generation Hustle, and it's it's so fucking good, dude. It's 10 like almost hour-long documentaries, all detailing a different modern day con. And the reason I even heard about it is because one of the episodes is called The Alabama Exit, and it's all about this dude who came to the town I was born in, the town next to where I grew up, Opelika, Alabama, and started essentially like a sort of a half WeWork, half social media incubator called Roundhouse. And he told everybody that he was one of the first 100 employees of Google, and he was this big, cyber Silicon Valley guy, and he was completely full of shit. And the problem was nobody bothered to Google this motherfucker. Not one person did. And if they they would find out that he was like a weird sociopath, like petty criminal from Texas, who the funniest part of the whole documentary is at the very end when they reveal who he actually is. They cut to these two guys who were friends with him, and they were like, and they're both on camera, and they're kind of looking at each other like, what would I say about Kyle? I mean, he was the kid who used to light shit on fire. You know what I mean? He was that kid. And then this other guy goes, he burned down the bridge, dude. And the other guy goes, he burned down 2 bridges. And that's all they give for the background on this guy. And you're like, yep, I know this kid. Anyway, there's this, there's like a whole thing about it, and one of the guys in it who was doing what they called like the fraternity Ponzi scheme, where essentially he was a hedge fund manager where he was just taking money from everyone in his fraternity at the University of Georgia and supposedly investing it, but meanwhile losing tons and tons of money. And it was that thing of like the walls are just slowly closing in before he has to actually deal with it.
Exactly. And you gotta figure out what to do.
And that guy specifically cited The Wolf of Wall Street as his like inspiration. He was like, I mean, I watched Wolf of Wall Street and we just wanted to do that thing. And you're like, yeah, but Jordan Belfort's not a good guy. It's
you know how it ends, right?
Yeah.
Right?
So, tell
me, you know.
Yeah, but my point in bringing up all of that is just like, people taking things the wrong way because they're crazy is not the fault of the thing that they watched. It's their own upbringing or their own personal psychosis. It's not, So anybody who has a problem with this movie, it's just like, well, yeah, this movie is not going to inspire crazy people to go out unless they were already crazy and going to do it anyway,
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people might identify with Kurt in the sense of like they understand like the world that he's coming from, but that doesn't mean that then they're justifying his actions in any way, except maybe with the white nationalist guy.
Exactly.
Got to stick with it. I would say for me, like in terms of kind of like, well, what's your memorable moment? Like, what's your lasting impression of this movie going to be? It really is probably going to be him poisoning the white nationalist guy, and then the hard cut to him doing the YouTube how-to video. How to inject the poison and then use the hot glue gun. It just like, holy shit. Just again, brilliant editing, that or the car chase scene.
When the Prius flips over on top of the
oh my god,
under the highway.
Good. What about you, sir?
Oh, most memorable. I mean, I think I'm probably gonna have to go the last part where she smushes him against the wall. It's just so good. I'm a sucker for a good. To bring up Get Out again at the last moment when the TSA guy rolls up at the end and saves him. You're like, yes, like thank you for giving me at least this. I've hated this guy this whole fucking movie, and it's great to see him puke up blood.
I always wonder, like, what if they went with the original ending for Get Out, where it was just like the regular cop? Like that would have just been the most brutal way to end a film,
right? Well, and it's also it's that what I was talking about subverting expectations, because you watch this whole movie and you think, oh no, they're gonna pull up and just fucking shoot the guy, and then when it's Lil Rel, you're just like, yeah, like you're so happy. So I love it, man.
It's great. Now it's time for the last segment, the last thing we have going on here, of how many trash cans do you want to give this movie, Rivers? Because I'm firmly in the one trash can territory.
Same.
I like what they did.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. One trash can. I would recommend this to absolutely anybody. There's certain people, like I said, my friend Monica, for instance, who actually works in this world, where I'm very curious to know, what did they get right? What do you think? But just for me personally, of what I know of this sort of social media landscape, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Wonderful. I mean, it is interesting because it shows the quote unquote dangers of clout chasing.
Yeah.
And so what I really, really would recommend is if you know anyone who's a little too obsessed with social media, just tell them to get really high and watch this movie. And then just, let that introspective text thread develop between the two of y'all over the next hour and a half of what occurs.
Yeah,
so.
I'm in favor of that as well.
Now it's time though for plugs. So Rivers, just tell the people, what have you got going on? Where can people find you?
Oh, you gotta follow me. You gotta find me on Instagram. You gotta find me on Twitter. You can subscribe. You can go to my Patreon. I love that we've just talked about this for an hour and 49 minutes, and now I'm gonna do the thing. But here it goes. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rivers Langley. You can check out my podcast. It's called The Goods from the Woods. We also have a Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/thegoodspod, where I have actually just relaunched, as of today, my old college radio show.
Wow.
So 10 years ago, when I was at Auburn, me and one of my best friends, Chandler, we used to do a show on the campus radio station called the Dr. Rock and Captain Fantasy Show, where it was 3 hours of kick-ass tunes. We're scaling that back to like an hour and a half, but we're going to do it once a month, and that's actually free at the Patreon. So go.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that one's going to be a free show, but we've also got over 100 hours of bonus content for our podcast on there as well. So if you got $5, toss it our way. That's the price of a cup of coffee in the big time, as Macho Man says. And you can, speaking of wrestling, you can check me out on YouTube, youtube.com/wrestling pro wrestling, ringside at the Brian Kendricks Wrestling Pro Wrestling, which we hope to be returning live to the Burbank Moose Lodge as soon as possible here in LA.
Again, I'm going to be going down like a YouTube rabbit hole of watching those clips, and so it's fascinating. You always have so many cool things going on. It's inspiring and daunting, at least.
Well,
sure.
Thank you.
On my end, though, for the podcast, of course, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Gigo Podcast, GIGO Podcast. But also follow us on Letterboxd, not because we want followers, but so that way then we can follow y'all, and then we can hear like what your thoughts are on various films, and we can kind of get a temperature gauge for what the people are doing. Spotify analytics only go so far in telling us like what music you're listening to, so this is just the natural next step until Spotify buys that too. Also, leave a review, mostly because it's a good thing. If they have reviews on Spotify, I don't know. They do on iTunes, so on iTunes, leave a review.
I've never looked at our Spotify analytics for what people are listening to on my end, but I really would love for it to be like just weird shit. Like we listen to whale songs, just whale songs, and white noise and rainforest sounds.
Yeah, it's Brockhampton, 9 Inch Nails, Machine Girl, Lil Baby, and Aphex Twin.
Okay,
are
all
our
right.
top 5. So some really interesting
that
characters,
sounds fun.
I think. All right, you got anything else for the good people, Rivers, before we get out of here?
No, just thanks for having me, and check out my podcast.
Please, everyone, go ahead and do that. And until next week, deuces.